Well, here we are again. We're on a quest to understand what it means to be the priest of the house. I'm talking to, of course, husbands and fathers and men in general. If you're not married, you'll want to get a hold of this information because it's not because I'm teaching it, but because it's truth. And I want to help you down the road to become the priest of your home once you get married and once you have children. The Bible has a lot to say about being the priest of your home, that God has placed his authority into men, put his authority into men to be the leaders in their homes and to be the priests, those who stand between their children, their wives, their problems, stand between them and the Lord in intercessory prayer, in discussions, in discipline, whatever, that we have been called to be the priest of our homes. And a lot of men have heard that saying over the years, and they say, well, I know what you're saying, but I don't know what you're saying. Tell me how to be the priest of my home. And I'd had several men approach me on this level, and I'm happy to be here today talking about what it means to be the priest of our home. And today we're going to talk about a seventh area where men need to rise up and be the priest of their home. And that is in the area of setting boundaries. You know, we don't hear a lot of talk about this, but boundaries are so absolutely critical in our homes today, because if we don't set boundaries, culture will. And believe me, they'll be ungodly, they'll be unscriptural, and they'll lead to devastation and destruction. We have to give people, our wives, our children, godly boundaries. We have to make sure that the boundaries we set in our home are protective, and that they're a blessing, and that they're life-giving. You know, you may not have thought about this, but you know the 10 Commandments? Sure you do. The 10 Commandments, you know what they are? They're boundaries. And in essence, what God is saying is, if you follow these boundaries, if you live inside these boundaries, you'll live a happy, healthy, peaceful life. But if you step outside these boundaries, you're going to walk in just a lack of joy. You're going to live in the danger zone. You're going to be miserable. You're going to be shamed. You're going to be guilty, because boundaries are our friends, guys, not our enemies. You know, and I think of one of the boundaries is thou shalt not commit adultery. Well, you know well as I do that if there's adultery in the home, there's hell in the home. There's destruction, there's rejection, there's everything evil that comes with that. And God said, I don't want you to commit commit adultery, because if you do, you're going to destroy the home. You're going to destroy a marriage. You're going to destroy the kids, yourself in the process. So stay within these boundaries and live at peace, be healthy, be blessed, be encouraged. Boundaries are a good thing. I remember when I was in high school, I had a curfew right after I got my driver's license. I had a curfew. I had to be home on school nights. I had to be home at 10 o'clock. And you know what? I appreciated that. I knew that I had school the next day and I needed my rest. So I did not see that boundary as infringing upon my rights or my dad trying to be a killjoy. Because he wanted me to get the sleep I needed, and because he wanted me to spend time at home, he said, I want you to be at home no later than 10 o'clock. And as far as I remember, not that I'm perfect, but I honored his boundaries. And yet in today's world, I see the kids calling the shots. The kids are telling their parents what they're going to do. And you ask, who's the kid here and who's the parent? Because, it's scary. If you're a parent, if you're a husband, if you're a daddy, you're the priest of your house. Not to rule that home like a tyrant, and not to rule with an iron fist, but to surround your home with healthy, Christ-honoring, God-fearing boundaries that keep everyone in check, keep them safe, keep them healthy, keep them whole. Because boundaries need to be seen as healthy, not you're trying to steal my fun or none of that. And we hear that a lot today because boundaries are very healthy. And so if you're the priest of the house, I invite you to set healthy boundaries around your children. I wouldn't say around your wife. You two need to come into agreement on that. Your wife is not your kid. She's your wife. But set healthy boundaries in that home and expect your kids to honor them and hand out discipline or punishment if you have to when those boundaries are broken. Because this is serious. What I'm talking about is very, very serious. Kids need to know their boundaries. That we are a boundaryless generation. Kids, they just don't know when to pull it in. They don't know if they're coming or going. They're running the house. And we've got 3-year-olds running homes today because the parents don't set boundaries on them. Let me give you an example of that. Some of you parents are not going to like this or you're going to disagree with it, and I may be old school, but here goes. If a 3-year-old throws himself on the floor one time and kicks and carries on, you might want to pick him up and in love, try to restrain him and refrain him from hurting himself and getting the idea that he's not running the show. But if that becomes a lifestyle and that kid's always screaming and yelling and carrying on, and he's actually running the house through his attitude and through his actions and through his loudness and rebellion. Yeah, 3-year-olds, they have a sin nature. Oh yeah, they can rebel. If that's continuing in your home and you're putting up with that and you're not putting proper boundaries around that kid, then you kind of get what you deserve. Not trying to be mean, but I'd be hanged before I admitted that my 3-year-old was running my house. So there comes a time that you have to get their attention. Yeah, okay, you can do timeout if that works, depending on the nature of the kid. But sometimes you may want to minister from the backside up. And I know a lot of you have been taught that spanking's not right. I got news for you. There is a time for spanking, and I agree, it's minimal. But if your kids are running the house, and they're 3 and 4 years old, and they're getting everything they want, and they're making everybody miserable around them, and they're embarrassing and upsetting the apple cart all the time, somebody needs to understand who the boss is. Somebody needs to understand boundaries. And so I'm not saying beat your kids. Don't misunderstand me. I'm talking about applying wisdom to their backside and looking at them in love and saying, you forgot who's running the show here. I am. You're not running this show. You're not going to do this anymore. I'm putting boundaries on you. You say, well, you can't reason with 3-year-old kids. Well, that's exactly right. That's why sometimes a little backhanded action on the backside only needs to take place. And I see parents all the time. I pastor churches. I know what I'm talking about. How many homes have I pastored where the kids were running the home and the parents were just throwing their hands up going, what? I don't know what to do with this kid. I don't know. You know what? You got a boundary issue and you need to deal with it. I'm not saying beatings. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about using ways and methods to get across the idea that you forgot who the boss was. And you're not doing that anymore. I'm putting boundaries on you. And if you step outside those boundaries, there's going to be consequences to pay. We call that leadership. We call that parenting. Don't see it as punitive. See it as healthy. Because if you don't get those kids under control at 3 and 4, they'll put you through hell on earth at 13 and 14. We've got to put healthy boundaries in our homes. Man of God, priest of the house, pray about it. You and your wife talk about it, come into agreement on it, and stand firm in love and place boundaries in your home that will raise good, godly, healthy children with a respect for everyone else, their property, their personhood, everything. Boundaries are very, very healthy when played out right. God bless you.